What's up guys, it's Tony from Unequaled Heating. I know I look like I am tired as hell. A long awaited video on soldering. Before we get started, just wanted to say I understand that a lot of people don't see the point in what I do, shining up the pipes, you know, the neat soldering and stuff like that, and that's fair enough. So if this video isn't for you, then so be it. But there are a lot of people that are interested. It's probably one of the most regular questions I get on Instagram about my soldering technique and what flux I use and what gas gun I use and stuff like that. Do I use brasso? What wire wall do I use? And so on and so forth. So today we're going to be, I've set up a little rig and we're going to be soldering a few fittings. I'm going to go through the stuff that I use, fluxes, steel wool and stuff like that. And hopefully, whether you're an apprentice or someone who just wants to tidy up their soldering a little bit, hopefully you get something from this video that can help. So let's get to it. So this is what I use for soldering. It's a Milwaukee pack out. Big fan of the pack out gear. I've got loads of it and it's absolutely solid. So if you look, best system out there easily, I've owned the Makita one, which might as well be made of fag paper. It literally just, you look at it wrong and it snaps. The Bosch, I don't mind that. I've got a few of those still because they came with my laser level and stuff like that. Tough System's good as well, and that's it. I think the Bosch was the old box, right? They're the ones that I've owned anyway, and this just blows them all out the water. But inside here we've got, so if we just start off with Flux. Fry's Power Flow, it's all I've used since I was an apprentice and all I will ever use. A lot of people moan about this locking the fittings up, but that is when you got too much flux on the fitting, or if you're doing flux in the fitting and the pipe. So Power Flow or Fry's, which is owned by Flux, I think. Doesn't say on here, but I'm sure it is. They recommend you only flux the pipe. Only carry lead solder, no excuses. Put 2 in there. Very important. Blue roll and steel wool. This is what I'm using at the moment, and that is 40 grade, so 0000 grade steel wool. It's really fine. Map gas, I'm not too bothered about brands, to be honest, as long as it don't blow up. We had that batch a few years ago that kept leaking, right? I think that was Rothenberger, don't quote me on that though, but Mark Vito map gas. Coincidentally, I'm using the Mark Vito Firemaster 3 torch now, which is, I've been using these for about 11 months to a year, something like that anyway, and I honestly can't fault it. It's really good. The ignition lasts really well. It's cheap in comparison to the turbo torch that I always used, which are a nightmare now. I think they're like 70 quid, and with the turbo torch you're lucky if you get, you know, sometimes you can get a year out of them, sometimes you'll get 2 months. You can send them off to get refurb, but they're never the same. So yeah, really impressed with them. I'll light that up in a minute. In here we've got bath rubber, and then these, without sounding too boring, the Dicky Dye flux brushes are really good. They're cheap as well, they last forever. Underneath we've got some gas PTFE, speed-fit cap, normal PTFE, some solvent weld, and a gas meter cap for when clients annoy me. And then just some more solvent weld over here. So I'll just fire this up for you. I don't think you're going to see the flame because it's quite bright out, but I'd say the flame on the turbo torch is the best in my opinion. It's a really fine flame. This is the next best thing. Don't like Rothenbergers at all. I can't tell you exactly why I don't like them. I just don't like them. Never liked them. I owned one once and never again. So that's it for the soldering box. Let's get on with it. So this is the rig I've knocked up quickly. So we've got a hose connection there so we can test it afterwards. I've pre-soldered all these bottom fittings just so not to make this video too long. Don't want everyone to get bored. Soldering is probably boring enough to some. We've got a lever valve on there and a pressure gauge on there. We're going to be soldering 6 fittings. So on this one, we're going to be fluxing the pipe only. That's what Power Flow recommend. and that's how I do it anyway. So, and on this one we're going to be doing the fitting and the pipe. This is not recommended because any flux that you put on the fitting, when you push the pipe into it, it just pushes lots of excess flux into the fitting itself. And this one we're going to flux everything possible just to see what kind of finish we get from fluxing three different ways. I know a lot of people use different fluxes, and maybe some people do flux the fitting and the pipe, each to their own. As long as you flush it out properly afterwards, I guess there's not much problem with that. So the first thing we want to do is clean up all these pipes. Any pipe that you're going to be soldering onto needs to be nice and clean. So like I said earlier, I'm going to be using this 4-0 grade steel wool, and what you want to do is clean that up so it's nice and shiny. Any signs of oxidization and any dirt is off the pipe. Another thing to note as well is that if you're using older fittings or your fittings look a bit dirty, it's a good idea to still wool them as well. I'm not going to be doing that on this one because these are brand new fittings and they're nice and clean. So on this first one we're going to just flux the pipe itself, as mentioned. This is my usual method. So what I do is a nice light smear of flux around the pipe only, and then this bit of pipe, making sure to pay special attention to get it all around the back. Now this one we're going to flux again the pipe. But also the fitting as well. Now this is where you may notice some locking up of the fittings, making it really hard to work with. Probably not the reason Powerflow don't advise you do it, it's more to the reason that I said earlier about the more flux, excessive flux being pushed into the pipe and fitting itself. That went on surprisingly easy. And then this one we're going to do, be a bit generous. Big slop of flux around the pipe, big slop in the fitting. As you can see, it's a bit harder to get on that one. And same again on this side. Loads on the pipe there, loads on the pipe there. And then, do you know what? Let's go all out. So I realised I messed up a bit here, and I couldn't grip anything to get the fittings onto the pipe, etc. So ended up touching everything with the flux. So as you can see, they're all fluxed up. Now this is the pipe only. A lot of people just will give that a wipe, the excess flux, with their finger or rag. I'm not going to do that. It's not something that I normally do. So this is the pipe and fitting. Get that flux brush hair off of there. And then this, I'm not going to lie, I regretted that a bit. It went everywhere, and I had to kind of use the lever valve to give it a bit of leverage to get it in the fitting. So I'm not 100% sure that's it, but I might get a pair of grips on it in a minute and just double check. So first we'll solder the pipe that's being fluxed as pipe only. Firstly, what I do is apply heat to the area that I want the solder to run to first, so that gets a bit of heat. Then I apply heat to the area in which I'll apply the solder, and what that does, it stops the solder running around and building up in an area that's not heated enough for it to capillate. If need be, I'll go back underneath and give it another touch until I can see the solders run all the way around. Same again, heat the other side and then apply heat onto the side you want to stick the solder on. Heat to the opposite side, and then heat where you want to apply the solder. So you can see I'm applying the solder at the most least visible point. Well, least visible unless you look at that snot that just runs down the pipe there. So, fuck. So whilst the pipe's still hot, I'll give it a wipe with some flux just to the pipe and the fitting, trying carefully not to touch the solder because that could cause it to run. Then while still hot, I'll give it a wipe down with the blue roll. I just think that this makes the cleaning process a bit easier. And then I usually go across the joint first, get nice and in deep into the harder to clean places. And then I'm going to leave that snot there for educational purposes. And then I go in line with the pipe just to finish it off. Voila. So next, this is the fluxed pipe and fitting. So again, applying the heat to the area you want the solder to run to first, then heat the area where you're going to apply the solder. I don't know if you can hear on the video, but I've got my thumb always on the adjustment of the blowtorch, so I can turn the flame, continuously turning the flame up and down to what I feel is needed. Same again, applying the solder to the place least visible and watching very closely to see all the solder run round. Again, nice little wipes. This gets all the heat marks off the pipe before you come to steel wooling it. Just makes it that little bit easier to steel wool. Obviously this is done really gently, not to shock the pipe as it's still hot. Now, onto this bastard. So we're just going to do the same technique, this one. Apply heat where you want the solder to run to. Now I sound like a parrot. And then apply the heat and the solder to the least visible point. That's a lot of flux. So this one actually soldered surprisingly well, considering I thought it was kind of going to run all the way down the pipe and all that kind of stuff. But this just goes to prove that you don't really need to wipe your flux joints before you solder. You know, it's just if you're careful enough and you keep a keen eye on the joint itself to wait till you can see it's filled, you'll be okay. Same process again here, wipe while it's hot, I did have a bit of a problem cleaning this one up just because of the amount of flux everywhere. I mean, it was everywhere. Even when I steel walled this one, I was kind of picking up bits of flux from the ply behind and just rubbing flux back onto it. So took a little bit of an extra wipe down and a clean. But as you can see, it's a really nice joint still, in comparison to what it looked like a few minutes ago. So they're all soldered now. Not my finest hour. But I'm working around the camera. Camera's really close to me, so I can't get into the positions that I'd normally be in. That's what I'm going with anyway. But as you can see, they all soldered pretty neatly. Don't mind the scorching on the back wall, and also the little solder snot around the back of that one. But obviously, normally I'd just knock that off if it did happen. I'd never tear it out and do it again. Nothing's perfect. You're never going to see that anyway. But we're going to fill this up now and see if any of them leak. So I'm just going to leave it rolling. I'm going to go and turn the tap on, so if you hear anything, give me a shout. No good turning the tap on if the connection's not on, right? Right, I'm going to go now. Right, so that's all live. Oh, fucking hell. So that's all live now. I'm going to open this, see what pressure we got. One thing I will say about the gauge, I don't know if you can see it in shot here, but for some strange reason, earlier on I put lubricant on it. You should never do that to one of these gauges, because they don't need it, and the lubricant, as much as it helps it go on, I'm sure it'll help it fly off as well. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, you know why. So that's all done. Hose is connected and turned on. Lever valve's open, and that is sitting at 3 bar. Haven't actually got my testing rig with me today, so that's all we're gonna do. But if you've seen my work on Instagram and all the stuff we've done, you know that these hold forever. So that's pipe only, fitting and pipe, and everything. And I think we can all agree that they're all pretty much as good as each other. So that answers that question, and that question is one that I get asked a lot over on Instagram, and that is, how do I flux the pipe? Do I do pipe on its own, or the pipe under fit in, or fucking everything? No, I hope no one does that. And the answer to that question is, it doesn't seem to matter. So I'd say it all boils down to technique. So remember to adjust the heat of the flame as you're soldering. Solder from the least visible point. And when you see that ring come all the way around the fitting, it usually means it's capillated, you know, it's gone right into the joint. Unless you've got any debris in there or whatnot, there's no reason that won't hold. I'm going to drain all this down and cut the pipe and take one of these fittings off, and just show you that the solder has run all the way around. So I've had this quite a few times over the years. People saying they'd love to cut the fittings open to see how little solder's in there. So we'll do that for you now. What I'm going to do is, when I take this fitting off, I'm going to kind of rock it to get it off rather than twist it, because I don't want the illusion of the solder looking like it's been run round, but just because I twisted the fitting, if that makes sense. So we're going to apply some heat. We're going to kind of just rock it upwards. There she goes, and you can see that that looks pretty well soldered. I'm just going to cut the underside just so I can spin it around 360 for you, so you can see that beautiful snot as well. You bastard. I think it's good to leave things like that in there, because like I said earlier, nothing's perfect. We'll zoom right in there, and then hopefully that focuses, and then you can see, I mean, it's run around perfectly. If anything, you can see there's too much flux in there where it's built up around the bottom. So thanks a lot guys, I hope you've picked at least something up from this video. I'll see you next time.